problems with osteoporosis, so I helped her move out with me, and she was doing pretty well, but still she was starting to lose memory. And when we moved back to Wisconsin, I started an independent living advocacy business. Am I talking too fast? No. I got 20 minutes, I got to go really fast.
You can take your time.
When we moved back, my mom fell on the front porch in the first week that we were back, fractured her pelvis, into the hospital, and life changed forever at that point. She needed assistance most of the time, and soon within 4 or 5 months she needed it all the time. Hospital bed in the dining room. We rearranged our furniture. People said, "Gee, Terry, you really got a strange house now." And I said, "Well, it works. Yeah. That's all that matters, it works, and my mom likes it and I like it and it's convenient." So, well, one of the things we learned was people look at you differently. Like, what are you doing this for? Well, my mom's my best friend. Well, you have to live your life. And what I learned about, I talked to family groups too, and family members experience this all the time, where people who think they love the person who's caring for someone act like they don't, because they say, "Your mother really should be in a nursing home." What? She's on the front porch having a brandy. Why should she be in a nursing home? You know, "Hey, Mom, what do you want to do?" You know? She said, "Let me finish my brandy and I'll think about it." So what happened, I call those toxic friendships. And I kept them as friends, but I tried to stay away from them as much as possible. There were some core friends at Nellie O'Neill, and those, a couple of them are disability rights leaders in Wisconsin, who were right with me all the way in other families. But the people who never, ever questioned what I was doing, you know who it was. Ever. So this is an emotional topic for me. It's 15 years after my mom died. But it's still sometimes hard to talk about it. Not because it's bad, because it's such an emotional experience. So I have this powerful sense of gratitude whenever I'm with people. There's an Alzheimer's Association representative here. My mother was misdiagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Wow. After she fell and got hurt, her memory crashed and burned. Well, we know now that Alzheimer's disease it's not like instant Alzheimer's. Her doctor misdiagnosed her. I called the state because I'm a former Fed. The state said, "Call the Alzheimer's Association." There was one office, or one person in an office in Milwaukee. And she said, "Get a workup on your mom at a geriatric center." And she had a vascular dementia, so she could be treated with anticoagulants. Her memory loss plateaued. So there's a common bond with a lot of people. You know, nurses had a lot to do with how well our life turned out. But it wasn't until we started getting people into our home that it really started turning around. And we went from a situation where tenuous at best, exhausting for me, nerve-wracking for me, painful for my mother. Where is life going to go? I'm trying to do all of it. And I can't remember what we did in order to get help, but I wasn't. We got people in when my mom needed physical therapy, and we'd have home health aides for a while. And then we'd make it on our own for a while. And one day, when I was sitting up at my electronic typewriter in 1985, my mom called to me from the hospital bed, said, "Terry, will you take me out to the porch?" And I said, "Not now, Mom, I got to finish working." And I stopped and I said, "What's wrong with this picture? My mom's getting weaker. I'm getting tireder. Life is going like this. We don't want strangers in our home, but my mom's pretty gregarious, so am I. Why don't we try it?" So we called this agency, and you're going to tell me when I'm, right?
Don't worry.
When I've gone too far.
Yeah, don't worry.
You'll yell at me, right?
Yeah, I will.
Okay. So the agency sent us our first permanent home care worker, and her name was Mary Ann. And I thought back then that when Mary Ann was coming in, she was coming in to help my mother with a bath. She was coming in to save our lives. And literally my mother's life, and definitely my emotional life. And it was, and I tell family members, I almost beg family members, I talk to groups of family members, I say, please, you've got to understand, one person who believes in what you're doing, who knows what they're doing, who cares about your parent or your spouse or the adult child you're with, it's like bringing in an army. It's incredible. You come in and you say, I've seen these situations and they can get better. They can? Yeah. Well, let's work with it. I want to say something about when I talk to groups of direct care workers, I talk about what you did for us. My mom only wanted women to give her baths, except I could get away with it. So she had her girls. But there are many wonderful men doing direct care work, and I always feel a bond with you guys too. Then I come out of the disability rights world. I know lots of people supporting people with physical disabilities, developmental disabilities, cognitive disabilities, psychiatric disorders, progressive diseases, and everybody has various things in common. That is commitment to having people live full lives, as full and meaningful a life as you can live. It's about power and empowerment and dignity. My mother was a second-class citizen to many people, but not to you guys. And that was, well, I'll tell you something else about Betty, because that was her nickname, Betty Crocker, for very good reasons. So we get this first, I'm jumping around because I gotta, but Betty Crocker was Mary Ann. Mary Ann wasn't really, the person. It was Betty Crocker, who was the wonderful pie baker that we really loved. And she came into the house, and she's doing all sorts of things for my mom. She said, when your mom's resting, do you mind if I'm a pretty good baker, I brought fresh apples. Do you mind if I whip up a pie? And I said, well, whatever's best for Mom. So not only did we have this wonderful person in the house, we had apple pie. We had people coming in to ask, where's Mary Ann? Does she have apple pie today? Neighbors started coming to our house because it was more attractive now. It wasn't depressing. And she taught me stuff. She taught me how to look for skin breakdowns. She taught me how to help my mother remain more independent. Your mother is in a hospital bed, you help her walk to the bathroom. Why don't we put a commode next to her bed? We can put a screen around it to protect her privacy. Why don't we get her handy wipes so you don't have to constantly bring a washcloth? She can do that too. Why don't we give her an intercom so you can sleep upstairs? And I'm going, who are you? And then, over the years, I think back and say, how much were you getting paid? I always paid above scale when people were working for us independently, but what's that worth? Yeah, I get mad, of course, about this stuff, and so do you. But it was a powerful learning experience for me. Then my mom, I was leaving her alone for a few hours at a time. My mom fell, broke her pelvis and her wrist, and was in the hospital in dire situation. And I didn't know if she'd ever walk again. She was disoriented. I didn't want to have her go to a nursing home. So I said, we're going to blow our money one place or another. She kept telling me, just take me home, I'll be okay. I said, Mom, what am I going to do? You can't walk. I didn't think I didn't know that someone who was 82 could rehab. I have 8 rules now. One of them is rehabilitation is not only for the young. Number 1 is never accept old as the explanation for anything. So we set up round-the-clock help with a home care agency, and I had to take off. I left town for a few days on a work trip, and I was calling in, and it took 2 people to help her stand when she was in the hospital. For a while it took 2 people at home. They said, she's getting a little better, but it's still difficult. So I was out of touch for about 18 hours. This was 3 days after she left the hospital. And I come in the front door, this is before cell phones, and there's my mom walking 3 days after I was considering a nursing home for her, with the help of one person from her hospital bed in the dining room to the living room. And I said, Mom, you're walking. She said, how else am I going to get to my armchair? I didn't argue with her. Well, you could have taken a wheelchair. And I didn't do that. And then that was life transforming, because I realized